My name's Tim. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks. I stole this from Alan when the last time I was in England, so I had to prove that I needed it, not just hanging in my office. Well, we've heard a lot over the last couple days about the safety culture, about the direction of programs, large enterprise level, Navy level, and even small. Finding out the small things make a difference. And so I kind of bragged to Jimmy, who led us off, and I want to apologize to begin with, because I told Jimmy, man, this is the year. We're going big. We're going to the stadium. There's going to be a stadium show. And I'm going to finish my next book, and I'm going to present on everything I learned about about safety. I learned from my kids. Kids on rebar. And then I didn't finish it. I bonked this summer. So I don't want to waste the talk, because that'll be next year. But I challenged myself, and I decided, you know, the chapter I bonked on, let me try to put it together and present it. Maybe I'll find my way through it. So, once upon a time, in a land far, far away, in a time far, far away, we had just completed an awards ceremony with the Cambridge Center for Behavioral Studies that accredited SuperValue's Midwestern Distribution Center. Here's the infographic we put out there. You may notice a young John Austin in the upper left picture with our friends there at SuperValue. John was much younger then, before he became a grand advisor. And the folks in blue are the front line of this grocery distribution warehouse, all coming together to receive the award, because it is their award. It's their program. It's their success that John and our friend Mark Alavocius were there to accredit for the first time. Myself and Dwight Harshbarger, the late Dwight Harshbarger, the late great Harshbarger, we went back a couple years later and reaccredited them. But that's not the story I want to tell. Once upon a time, a second warehouse within SuperValue wanted to build on the success. They wanted to do it as well. Murdoch, the first one that got accredited, were kind of doing it as a pilot project, and they had great success. Their injury rates went down. For 3 years, 0 recordable injuries, which is unheard of in a grocery distribution warehouse. And we could talk lengths about SuperValue's success and the challenges they had when they increased volume and things like that. But a second warehouse was concerned about their safety record. Their injury rates were fairly high. I think they're up at 12 one point. And they decided, a manager there decided, you know, I'm going to go and benchmark. I'm going to go and see what the successful warehouse did. Now, I know this is Don Kernan, but it's the only picture I had. So let's just pretend he's the other warehouse manager. This is actually Don, the warehouse manager of the successful warehouse. He will play the part of Ron, who was at the warehouse that needed help. Now, Ron thought that Don was cooking the books. He's like, I can't believe that success. And so he arranged to go up and do some benchmarking, spend a couple days, meet with the team, meet with the managers, talk with employees, learn about the program, learn about the success and everything like that. But since he thought it was all bullshit, he decided he's going to get there 2 days early, unannounced. And I guess that's back when we didn't have as many security measures at warehouses like that, food distribution warehouses, where we need to kind of lock them down because we eat that food later. He arrived 2 days early, started walking around, trying to figure out, you know, how he was cooking the books to call out his fellow manager. And he came away with a different recognition of what made it successful. Now, just like Marathon, Detroit, Illinois, they had a fairly sophisticated program, employee-led, designed. They had an observation card pinpointed by employees. They had a very unique process where it was only a short card, about 6 items, and they'd work on it as a team, as a front line, and succeed, and then rotate off. And sound familiar, folks? But this manager didn't take away all the complexity that Don talked about the other day, all the intricacies of an employee-led team and the behavioral science behind it. What Ron came away with is this reinforcement thing. Everybody keeps talking about reinforcement. It must work. Now, suffice to say, when you first learn about reinforcement, it's fairly simple. So he decides, I'm going to go back to my warehouse, and I'm not going to put in all that fancy stuff just yet. I'm going to just try out this reinforcement stuff. So he went through his chain of command, which I'm sure our Navy folks would appreciate. And he went to the next level of chain of command, and he went to his supervisors, and he got them together in their supervisor meeting. Every Monday, he had his own supervisor meeting, and he got them together this next Monday, and he said, hey, let me tell you about this other warehouse. We're going to kick their butt. I know the secret sauce. It's this reinforcement thing. So it's simple. What I want your supervisors, I want you guys to do is go out on the floor this week, watch one of our associates, and when they do something safe, walk in there and say, hey, I noticed you did this thing safely. Thank you. And all the supervisors did that. Yes, sir. Yeah, okay. All right. So the next week, he got them together. The next week, he got them together. And he said, how many of y'all did that? And they all raised their hand. And he said, no. I went around and talked to the employees. I made some white space. I went around and talked to my employees. And only 2 of you. They only named 2 of you out of 15 that did it. So I'm going to use a little bit of a principle of reinforcement we call negative reinforcement. And so therefore, I'm going to go out and ask this next week our associates, did anybody come up and say thank you for being safe? And I'm going to take names. Next Monday, your name better be on the list. So next Monday came. Where am I at? And the next Monday came, and he had 7 names. Not all 15. He had 7 names. And he named out. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Farzana. Thanks, Jerry. What about the rest of you? Is there a problem here? Is there an issue? Is that a hard task to do? And then, the remaining folks, Chuck went, all right, we get it. We'll try it out. Because the contingency now is there, and it has been delivered, and they know your name better be on that list or you're on the boss's short list. So the next week, 15. Fairly simple intervention for managers, right? Fairly challenging step for some supervisors. And so he kind of had to put a little bit of the muscle into it, a little bit of the manager grease to make sure it happens. So he did that for 2 more weeks. And he told me, the best part of my week was when I went out, and I made it random so the supervisors didn't know I was going out, but the best part of my week was going out and chatting with the workers. Especially when they said, yes, somebody came up to my supervisor came up, Nicole came up to me and mentioned that I was using this particular tool when we needed some replenishing and I needed to reach for a case. I could just use that tool and pull it toward me instead of actually going and reaching it. And he'd never done that before. She'd never done that before. He loved that. And in those walkabouts, he started learning about some of the issues that they were having and the like. And so about the fifth week, he got his supervisors together, and he was going through his basic roll call. Jerry, thanks for thanking. Chuck, you said thank you this time. Drew, thanks for that. And the supervisor said, hey, boss, we get it. We get it. Right? You don't have to do that anymore. You have to force us. It works. It works. Our folks are working safer. Some of those issues that we've always been complaining about during our Monday meetings are resolving themselves. We get it. And you know what? It's not that bad of a talk. We kind of enjoy it. There's always been this kind of rough edge between us and the workers, and that kind of broke down some of the ice. But that's really not the story the manager wanted to tell me. Because that makes sense. For us behaviorists, we're like, duh, that's going to work. hopefully for you, after you try it, duh, it's going to work. No, the miraculous thing that our manager told me, he said, it was amazing. Couldn't believe it. You know, I kept doing my walkabouts because I really enjoyed it. And of course, I was participating. I was saying thank you. You know what I noticed? About 2 months in, without any instruction, without anything we did as a management group, our front line started saying thanks to each other. It just kind of grew. It became a practice, a cultural practice in our company. So once upon a time, we had success at the Midwestern regional facility, the distribution facility. You see them in the top graph there. Really high number. Look at how high those injury rates were. Putting in place their CAM program, Critical Action Management, what they called it. Followed by, as you saw with data, many different places that we document with the Cambridge Center for Behavioral Studies. You can read Detroit's story, you can read Illinois' story on our website, behavior.org. Matt and I documented it in the book that we have over in the swag area. So we call this a multiple baseline. In other words, you start with an intervention with one part of your company, you keep the other company kind of in a holdout position, probably because they don't want to do it. And then you go to that part of the company and replicate. And if you can replicate, then you have some confidence that it's not just something historical that happened. You know, somebody had a really bad injury and then everybody kind of doubles down, or something in the news or whatnot. Now, us researchers will tell you when you do a multiple baseline, you want the other group that's holding out not to get any better, right? Because then you can't say, well, it's the behavior-based safety program that worked, because something else was happening. And that's what happened at the southeastern, or the southeastern distribution facility, SURF, where this manager Ron was at. So when we went and accredited them, they had the success that we require. You can notice their injury rate going down after the behavioral safety program, but notice the drop before that. That was the thanks. That was the impact of that simple intervention. So, as many of you know, you're not allowed to leave until you're able to recite this. Safety culture is... The Conoega wasn't helping out. No. Safety culture is... people talking to each other about safety. Yeah, we don't need to make it more complicated than that. I mean, what's a shared attitude? The hell's an attitude? We heard from Bob that attitudes are really a product of behavior. So why do we got to share an attitude when we can share a behavior, and what behavior can we all share? Even though some of us are mechanics, some of us are electricians, some of us are pipe fitters, some of us are managers, some of us do whatever Jerry does. We can all do a very similar behavior. And the one that's consistent across all of us is talking. So in the safety profession, you safety professionals know the growth of the safety maturity curve. So I like to kind of put it this way. As your safety culture matures, these things happen. Safety performance goes up. I like to count up instead of down. And you safety managers must be stressed out because you get success by doing nothing, right? Getting a 0, I'd rather count up. So we can count up on what? What's an important number, Don? What's an important number for you? What do you want to count up? What do you want more of?
Days between incidents. Oh, yeah, days between incidents. Days between incidents.
Days between incidents. Replicated. Observations, near-miss reports, close calls. We want to count up. You know, the same axis, people talking to each other, the amount of talking going on. Big correlation there. We're showing that in our analytics. So some companies, we get called in to help, are in the dependent stage, right? The dependent stage is basically managers talking to you. You're not doing any of the talking. There's talking, usually computer-based, perhaps. You mature from that, employees take personal responsibility. They're gonna bring up issues to management. Management appreciates it when they see hazards and have concerns about different processes. But the ultimate is when we're all talking to each other. Going management to workers, workers to management, workers to each other, the premier safety culture, we're all talking with each other. But here's a question I got for you. What should we talk about? What should we be talking about? Now, most of you will say, we got to talk about the at-risk behaviors that put people at risk, or the at-risk behaviors that put people in harm's way. So how does that go? How does that go? Usually, too often, the only conversation a worker is going to have with a supervisor or a manager is what? What they did wrong. And what does that kind of sound like? That's the question. So, in this corner, we have T.H.A.N.K.S. Brandon, come on up here. We have T.H.A.N.K.S, and I want to hear your best example of a supervisor chastening a worker for taking a risk. So,
It's not PC.
Brandon, we're on a university campus. So Brandon's taught me that you got these heavy pieces of metal that need to go from like here to there, and there's a crane that goes across, right?
Yes, sir.
But evidently, you're supposed to be walking the steel with some kind of magnet device.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Or staying very far away from it.
Or staying very far away from it. All right, so I'm going to walk right under it. Go.
Stop, come back over here, and do not walk under that piece of steel again, or you will be going home.
What do you think? What do you think? Not bad? All right, hold on. You didn't know this, but it's Chatham Steel versus the U.S. Navy. Can I have a chief? We need a chief. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're going to up Chatham. We're going to see. You're going to have to decide. All right? So let's see. We're walking an aircraft on a carrier. You been on a carrier? Oh, yeah. You've been on a carrier. Did you see Shabazz's, pucker? No. Okay, good. All right, so we're walking, and we're almost done with our walk, but I'm turning around to go get the next plane because we're trying to do turnaround, so I'm leaving my post. And the wing of the plane is now exposed. Nobody's watching it. And, of course, you're, a mere foot from the other plane? Okay? You understand the situation? Whew. Good. Okay, so I'm walking the wing, watching the wing. I'm like, I got to get going.
No! Stop.
That's it? I think Chatham wins. Thank you.
Tim,
Thank you,
that's
Chief.
not what happens on an aircraft carrier.
You've been on one.
No, I've seen movies.
So typically what we have is the worker told they're doing something wrong, and this is the timeline. This is what happens. You watch for 5 seconds, if that much, Brandon, and then you jump in and tell workers what they're doing wrong. You tell the workers the right way of doing the task, and then there's an awkward silence. What you're really trying to do is apply that negative reinforcement. What you're trying to imply is that if you do that again, you're going to have to deal with me again. Right? If you do that again, you will be scolded yet again. I'm a father. I use that a lot. So this is negative reinforcement. We're getting an increase in the behavior, but the reason they're doing the behavior is to avoid something negative. Of course, they're also avoiding you and the very safety program that you're trying to promote. Right, Brandon? Indeed. I guess that's why the chief knows. If we use negative reinforcement, next time the chief's going to be walking around, what's going to happen? Everybody's going to be walking the wing. They'll have their crash helmet. They have their bonnet, their cranial on. And they're going to stand up straight because you need posture. So, as Adressa said, when we use negative reinforcement, so you're going in and you're seeing a behavior and you correct it with negative reinforcement, you're going to get them to do that behavior. But guess what? There's going to be another concerning behavior you have, and you'll jump in again. And you'll continue to negatively reinforce, coming in and yelling and scolding, and you're getting compliance. But what's going on with the workers' verbal behavior with themselves and their peers? Well, I'll meet your minimum require, sir. We'll do what you do. We will comply to avoid your scolding, but no more than that. No more than that. You don't get a program at Detroit, in Illinois, MDI, by the minimum requirements. This is behavioral science, folks. So what should we talk about? We do need to correct at-risk behavior when we see it. I threw this up for our warehouse folks being on a conveyor. You see something that's putting somebody at risk. Jerry talked about folks walking on the steel sheets. It's hard to say a steel sheet. I use sheets when I go to sleep. Steel plates, thank you. So we do need to talk about risk. So let me ask you this. When I am at your facility and I'm walking around, steel mill, refinery, grocery distribution warehouse, textile mill, would I possibly be at risk and not even know it? Well, thanks. That's a lot of confidence. Yeah. Aircraft carrier? 100%? Yeah. Government building? Probably. Yeah. And you come up to me and you say, hey, Tim, walking that path is going to put you in like the line of fire of whatever the heck you flew. A jet. It's going to put you in we got some sharp objects flying around, and threads can be more dangerous than you think. Steel's heavy, and I know the warehouse is dangerous. If you told me, hey, Tim, I'm concerned about your at-risk behavior here, am I going to change my behavior? You're darn tootin'. I didn't know I was at risk, and now I know your feedback allowed me to have more awareness. Now, we go to awareness too much. Because, yeah, I'm the dude coming from outside. I'm the schoolboy here at App State, and I'm going to an industrial facility. I don't know what I don't know. But how often do you workers not know what they don't know? So oftentimes, when we use feedback to raise awareness, it's simply not doing that because they already know. They weren't unconsciously at risk. Quite often, when we talk about the risk that a worker takes, it's a calculated risk. How about that calculated risk? Who took one today? Right. Who drove in today? You stopped at every stoplight. Chuck? No. You calculated it, right? You got up at the, I got my dissertation in pizza deliverers, so I know this. You got up to the stoplight and you took a calculated risk. What were the calculations? Well, what's the percentage probability that I'm going to get in a wreck? And what do you look? You look at the antecedents in your environment, and you're going, okay, well, there's no other cars on the road. I'm taking a right turn instead of a left turn across traffic. That would be in the United States. I'm sorry, let me do it for our Brits and Scots. I'm taking a left turn instead of a right turn across traffic. And there's no cop around, so I might do a slow rolling stop. So I'm not, I can at least look around. But I'm taking a calculation there. What's the calculation? The probability of getting hurt versus the probability of getting it done. And what's the benefits of each? Well, the benefits of avoiding injury make sense, but the benefits of getting there a little quicker, getting the job done a little easier, being a little bit more comfortable while doing it, are more immediate and more probable. And the chance of getting in a wreck, how many times you got in a wreck on the App State University campus? None yet. None yet. So that calculation we're all making, every one of you, in our daily lives, and now let's up the ante. Let's put us in an industrial setting, a military setting, a logistics setting, and that calculation becomes much more important. But they're still being made. You have a calculated risk. And so now I'm taking a calculated risk, and I have one of my colleagues, one of my peers come up and say, hey, Tim, your sleeves are rolled up. I'm trying to remember everything. Sleeves are rolled up. You're looking right into the valve where the energy may come out, and I'm concerned, and maybe we can find another way. Now, does that make me more aware? That feedback makes me more aware? No, you said it's in standard operating procedures of a marathon, right? It doesn't make me more aware. What are we trying to do when we give corrective feedback? Very good. And that becomes part of the calculation, doesn't it? That's the last part of my book I haven't finished yet. Yeah, we'll do that next year. That's part of the calculation. Hey, I have somebody who's looking out for me. Looking out for my butt. What's the FMP butt? That calculation becomes a little bit more weighted toward, let's adapt my behavior to be more safe because somebody has my back and I don't want to let them down. And some good feedback may indeed start discussing some of the consequences. I don't know if you know how badly you can get hurt by a 4,000-ton piece of steel. If that didn't occur to you, I've had some experience in the past. I've heard what it sounds like when it hits. You get a whole building shakes. You might, in the feedback, give them some discussion of the antecedents. Hey, I've been in your shoes before. I know it's tempting to go ahead and take this shortcut. I know it's tempting to go ahead and go to the next plane, right? But there's other things we got to think about in our environment that maybe you weren't noticing. So you're balancing the antecedents and consequences, and that corrective feedback is designed to change the equation. Change the equation. Brandon's changing the equation by going, you can lose your job, or at least your day's pay, and then you got to go talk to Chuck and Jerry, which sounds really nice. I think I'd do that. No, you're sure me. All right. Sounds really, what am I doing? The Safety Summit's 9 years old, and in dog years, that's 86. So you're changing the calculation. And you may throw in the threat of discipline, hoping that changes the calculation. But then just like the stoplight, you're looking around for the police, and the police aren't there. That piece of the equation goes out. And if supervisor ain't there, Brandon, I'm just going to walk right under that. Right? So we're trying to change the calculation. But you know what? If we're focusing only on at-risk behavior, we're missing out on half of the benefit of feedback, of talking. Simple fact is, the overwhelming majority of what your workers do is safe. I can prove it. Because in all those graphs of injury rates going down, on the other side of it could be another graph of safe behaviors going up. The reason you haven't got a call today, Jimmy and Mike, or maybe you did, is because your workers are mostly, overwhelmingly, engaging in safe behavior. And that means we have an amazing opportunity that we never take. This fact is a great opportunity. Let me explain. Class, in Chapter 5, the behavioral principles of B.F. Skinner, as practiced by the behavior analytic community, you'll notice the term differential reinforcement of alternative behavior. And it's a technique used with problem behavior in children. It's a technique used on your kids. It's a technique we probably use all the time and don't think about it. One way of addressing at-risk behavior and one way of addressing problem behavior is to go in and punish it, or use negative reinforcement to change the behavior. But another way, a more humane way, and frankly more effective, is to reinforce the alternate behavior. Drive behavior that direction. That's where the cookies are. That's where the burger boy is. And so do you have a reinforcement-rich environment that drives behavior in that direction at the expense of the behavior going to the at-risk side? Because believe me, the calculations right now, if you have at-risk behavior, documented or suspected, when you got that calculation and you do your ABC analysis, and you do the behavioral incident analysis checklist, you're going to find that at-risk behaviors always win the calculation in the cases that you had the injury, because they're quicker, they're more fun to do, they're more comfortable to do. And if you can adjust your environment to send behaviors in the safe direction, then you're going to win the game. Without that kind of negative conversation, that's negative reinforcement or punishment. What do you think, App State? So let's talk about what feedback does with safe action. So how many of you have certain practices that are habitually safe? You don't have to think about it, you just do it. How many people know how to raise their hand? Just start raising your hand. Do it! My intro students are laughing at that. Hey, guys. Okay, put them down. How many of you have habitually safe behaviors? You don't even know you're doing it, right? Driving in today, did you wear your safety belt? Yeah. Do you remember doing it? Oh, bullshit. You don't remember it. 350 landings on an aircraft carrier. I imagine the checklist is quite long. And did you review every single step, or were some habitual? So when you have habitual behavior, and believe me, you're an operator, you're doing the same thing over and over again, right? You develop practices to fluency. And that's kind of the holy grail, right? We want to be fluent in our safe behaviors. What that means from a behavioral perspective is it's consistent all the time and done quickly, and if we get cognitive about it, maybe without thinking. So when I'm habitually safe and somebody comes up and says, hey, Tim, notice you have your safety belt on. Man, nice job. What does that do to me? Well, it makes me more aware again. Makes me more mindful that I'm doing the safe behavior. Here's an interesting question I have for you. What would you rather have? Habitual safe behavior or mindfully safe behavior? Habitually safe behavior or mindfully safe behavior? We'll just do it with a show of hands since I've proven you can raise your hands. Habitually safe. Who wants habitually safe? It's just done automatically. Okay, the students, Sean, Matt? Burger Boy. All right. Who says mindfully safe? All right. I'm curious. Why mindfully safe? I know I have this for some reason. I'll beat you. Don't run. Watch where you're going. Eyes on path. Mind on task. Bradley, why would you state what's not obvious, right? Habitually safe means I just got done with fluency, right? You'll do it the same way every time fairly quickly without a lot of antecedents to get the job done. And then Bradley raised his hand and said, no, that's not the ultimate goal. Mindfully safe. Why?
Because your arrow is pointing to the green mindfulness on your chart.
Oh.
Give me that mic.
Get it away from him. Give it to somebody else. There we go. And back. There we go. Yeah, let Gildan talk about it. Let's try to understand why some folks would argue that being mindfully safe is even better than being fluent in our safety behaviors. Go ahead.
So a saying I heard a long time ago is be uncomfortable being uncomfortable. Because if you're doing the same thing over and over, something changes, you don't know what to do now.
There you go.
I like that.
Some of you look kind of old.
Easy.
How long you been with Chatham? Not Jerry, dude behind Jerry.
Santa.
Yeah, you look old. 98. You're 98? Yeah. And during those 98 years with Chatham, nothing's changed. It's all been the same, haven't it?
No, it's changed quite a lot.
It's changed a lot. In what ways?
Single hoist to double hoist.
The single hoist to double hoist? You're not allowed to do that use a hoist to get under it to block it anymore?
Tip loading.
Tip loading? You're not allowed to do that anymore?
No.
And then you're getting rid of some leadership, some dead wood. And you got some young Turks in here that are yelling about walking metal around, right?
Right.
You have new people, you got new processes, you got new equipment, you got new markets changing around you. And perhaps the things that might have been safe practices in the past would now put you at risk now. And if you're not mindful, well done. Gildan gets a point. If you're not mindful, the environment's going to change around you. You're not going to be aware of it. You're not be situationally aware, and the injury will occur. Why have an observation process? You pinpoint really important behaviors, don't you? Things that you probably talked about. Hopefully you're finding the real risk out there. Why pinpoint? So we can go from what most people may be doing habitually, and we can talk about it and make it mindful. And so our observation programs are a practice in mindful behavior. So when somebody is habitually safe and you point out, hey, I noticed that they're thinking about it now. Yeah, I do that. Now they're mindful. Now somebody takes an extra step to do something safely. Takes an extra moment to skip the shortcut and do the process. Even better, maybe even thinks about a better way of doing it and just kind of does a B-hack. Creative little ways to make your own work safer. And you come along and you see it. Obviously, they're being mindful, and you say, hey, I noticed that. What does that function as? That function is reinforcement. Have you heard that term? Reinforcement? A little bit? Yeah. Big scientific term? Anything like that? No, really. It's used all the time. In fact, I like to use the analogy of rebar. Rebar, I didn't even know this at the time. I said, it's kind of like rebar. Well, what does the term rebar mean? Reinforcing bar. Any engineers in here? Okay, what, Jimmy? What would you use reinforcing bar for? You can't use reinforce twice in a sentence. That's redundant. You sound like one of my students.
To add more strength.
To add more strength. Somebody takes an extra step to complete a safe behavior, and you notice it. You're reinforcing. What does that mean? You're strengthening that behavior. Simple as that. And a stronger behavior is going to be one that's more likely to be practiced in that situation in the future. Definition of reinforcement. The behavior is more likely to happen in the future. It's going to happen in the future. That's the evidence of reinforcement if you get more of that behavior. And so when somebody's mindfully safe and you just come in and you mention that, let's say, for example, they are bending at the knees when picking up a load in the warehouse, and our friends at MDI come along, maybe one of the SOS members, and says, hey, I noticed you're bending the knees the last 5 times you're picking up cases. It's easy, since we're in a hurry, to throw our back into it, but you've been bending your knees. Good job. What's that going to produce? More bending at the knees. Behavioral principle that I'm surprised hasn't been talked about yet. And it's actually one of the most wonderful experiences that behaviors are going to have when you see it, is that behavior seeks out reinforcement. Remember, everybody's been talking about create the environment to get the behavior you want. So the way we think about it is when you create that environment, it's pulling the behavior toward it. Reinforcement is basically the lifeblood of behavior. Behavior is always seeking out reinforcement. I've seen you people going back for seconds on the dessert, talking to our speakers at the merch tent, enjoying each other's company. I didn't see anybody sitting at their seat doing the stretching exercise anymore, perhaps. Behavior seeks out reinforcement. So Jimmy's right. It strengthens behavior, but I took some pictures in my travels around the world, and one thing that started really surprising me when I saw some buildings of folks that are of meager sustenance in countries of the second and third world. They would have their block houses that they were proud of, and they'd stick rebar out of the top. Actually, this is a picture my dad brought me from his trips to Indonesia. My mom and dad brought me from their trips to Indonesia. And Dad was showing me this proudly of some friends he made. But of course, me being the safety geek looks at the top of this, and I'm thinking, there are kids there, and there's rebar up there. They're going to impale themselves. And so, I've taken these pictures around the world because my dad explained to me. When these individuals start building their houses, they dream of better times, more affluent times for their family and their community. And so they put rebar, as they build their houses, they go ahead and continue the rebar through the cement in hopes of able to build on, to make bigger. So what else does rebar do, Jimmy? Not only strengthens.
You can build upon it.
Good, I gave you the cheat side. Yeah. Reinforcement allows us to build upon the behaviors that we've shaped. Point that Nicole was making. This is the tallest building in the world. I've been up most of it. They don't let you go to the top. It has more rebar in it than 10 Eiffel Towers that are totally built of rebar. So because you're adding rebar, so if you're just using block, isn't block hard? Isn't cement hard? You go ahead, hit your head up against it. But you get too much, it starts crushing on itself. It doesn't have the tensile strength. It'll fall in wind and severe weather. You put this metal and you put this rebar in, it can withstand. Not only can you make it big, it can withstand the effects of weather. The tensile strength is there. So let's work on that principle, building on. How many are parents here? Parents here? How many, when you get home from work, you're all tired, and your kids are not allowed to talk to you until you get your slippers, you get in your easy chair, you open a beer, and have your first drink? Am I the only one? So one day, my son, who wants to please his father, the book's about my kids, my son who wants to please his father notices that I ignored him for the first 20 minutes of every day when I got home. I kind of like to settle in and ask my dog. And he wanted my attention. Behavior seeks out reinforcement. So one day he brought me a beer. He brought me a beer. And what did I do? Good son. That's a good son. That's a good son. He's like, oh, Daddy. You get on my lap. Yeah. And so what happened the next day? Let's see if you understand the principle of reinforcement. What happened the next day? He brought me a beer. I'm like, and what did he do the next day? He brought me a beer. And what did I do? Okay, yay. Yeah, and it's called shaping, and it happens naturally. His previous behavior wasn't getting him the same result. You know, that's what happens with managers, folks. We don't blame managers either. Managers are human too. And you know, all you managers are going to go out and do thanks for this and thanks for that, and you're going to really love it, but then what's going to happen over time? And it's going to fade away. It's going to extinguish. And so does that mean my son just stops seeking my attention? No. The next day, can't see this, but next day he brings me a beer, but he also brings me my slippers. He meets me at the door with my slippers and the beer. Good boy, good boy. And then that fades out. And I continue, thank you. And I continue. And by the end of the week, I have a son meeting me at the door, not only with the beer, but the beer is open and in a glass with my slippers. Good boy. What just happened there? Behavior seeked out reinforcement. He wanted his dad's praise. Important person in his life, granted, but so are you to your workers, so are you to your peers. And when you reinforce that one behavior, and there's a reinforcement-rich environment, behavior seeks out reinforcement. What's the next thing I can do to get that supervisor to say thanks to me? What's the next thing that I can do to get my peer to come over and give me a thumbs up? What's the next thing I can do? And suddenly we go from an environment where, oh, if this hadn't happened to you, you haven't done reinforcement. You haven't got slippers and beer at the door? You got to work on it. Well, you got to have kids first, but then you got to work on it. Scientific fact, behavior seeks out reinforcement. So creating a reinforcement-rich environment will encourage your workforce to find new ways of being safe when the environment is changing around them all the time. Do you think, Chuck, that you can write on the tablets of T.H.A.N.K.S, the standard operating procedures, everything your workers need to do to stay safe? No, it's a constant chase with all the incident reports, trying to figure out the next thing we can write in our SOPs. We'd rather have a workforce finding new ways to be safe themselves. Why would they do that? It's a reinforcement-rich environment. So theoretically, I want to do this with MDI one day. Bending at the knees to pick up a heavy load. Hey, Tim, I noticed that you're taking an extra step. Bending at your knees to pick up an extra load. Reinforcement, seeking out reinforcement. And then I'm starting to do the other behaviors that ergonomically that we know are going to keep your back safe. I'm going to test the lift. I'm going to ask somebody to come help. We make behavioral checklists. Those of you who have behavior-based safety, and those of you who have inspection lists, and those of you who have whatever list you got, I'm sure you have a list. I'm sure you have a list. We try to document every single thing you need to do to stay safe. And that list becomes 180 items. That's perfectly pencil-whipped. When in fact, perhaps, if we understand the principle of shaping that Nicole taught us, we might have another way to get to the same goal. So here's our performance graph again. We saw earlier with negative reinforcement. Let's look at the positive reinforcement curve that Andressa talked about before. So we target something fairly safe. In our behavioral science, we call this airless discrimination learning. You have a kid that that has maybe some developmental disabilities. Instead of giving them a task that's too hard and they fail and then they get disappointed and it punishes them, you give them a task that you know they can do, that you know they're going to succeed at, that you know you can deliver your reinforcer for. You guys know you got an idea, right, in the refinery? You got an idea already. And when they do it, you swoop in with your reinforcement. And then once they master it, you don't have to keep talking about it. They've got it. You pick another one. And then you pick another one. And you pick another one. And folks are saying, I'm going to act safely, but I'm going to do more than that. And I call this the exponential function. I'll come up with a better word. Don't worry. There's probably some fancy word. Bob probably has some good marketing suggestions for me. Actually, Costain has all these terms. You said it, I did it. See it, sort it, report it. So help me with this exponential function, if you don't mind, Alan. What I mean by exponential function is you don't have to keep reinforcing one behavior at a time, trying to get to that ultimate goal. Behavior seeks out reinforcement. You're having to start that process, but then folks are finding new ways to be safe, and they're going above that have-to line to what Andressa and Aubrey Daniels called the want-to line. Because not only are they getting reinforced for it, everyone's talking to each other. It's the innovation that gets reinforced as opposed to the simple behavior. Because they're seeking out new reinforcement. So what program do you want? I'll do what I need to do to avoid you, your compliance scheme, getting in trouble, minimum requirements, or one that produces what our friend Aubrey Daniels calls discretionary behavior. Workers are using their discretion to find new ways to be safe. Secret sauce, a reinforcement-rich environment. So yeah, I got a doctorate, but as you've heard my colleagues here say, most of what we learned has been out there in the field. We had to put on the hard boots, the hard steel boots. What are those things? I got manager shoes on now. Yeah, we had to put on the hard hat, and we go out there into the real classroom, In the real world with real people doing real things. It's easy for us to pine on with theoretical notions of reinforcement and show it in our studies with undergraduate freshmen or in our sample of what you allow our students to help you with in your projects and internships and the like. And we try to use our partnership to come up with real solutions. So I want you to meet my good friend Sam. I want to get him here. Oh my gosh. I'm going to fly him up from South Africa one day, but he's super humble, and I don't know, maybe we can all write him letters or something like that. Yeah, Sam's a friend of mine I met in South Africa 10 years ago, Lori, or so. And that program has been through a lot, and ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs. But Sam was always there. Sam is a safety professional in the mining construction company that Lori and I worked with. Matt almost worked with before COVID. And the job of a safety professional in a construction company, a mining company, especially in Africa, is a compliance-based kind of situation. You know, you're setting up the safety, you're getting everything in a row, you're making sure everybody's trained, making sure the PPE is there, making sure the compliance program's in place, making sure the contractors know the requirements, and then following up with the proper discipline and feedback and things like that. Not a lot of reinforcement. It's a negative reinforcement scheme, like most of your programs. Yeah. But Sam had the knack. I don't know, it's the secret sauce maybe. But of all the people I met down there, of all the people I met up here, Sam got it. So I decided, as we were building a program of behavioral ninjas, like Costain's created, I had to be humble and you go and say, you know, I'm not from this part of the world. I understand reinforcement, but I don't understand what's going to work in your environment. And so I basically went to site and followed Sam around, took a lot of notes. And while we did that, you know, I just learned. He was my teacher. So we went around to this electrician group, and we saw their stand-up meeting, and we've been working with that. And he went around, talked to fabricators, and this one dude in a haul truck, or what is that? It has a scoop in the front, a scooper truck. What's the technical? A scooper truck? Front loader. Yeah, there you go. And a front loader. He was in the front loader with the engine running, looking at his cell phone, talking on the phone. Cardinal sin, going to get you fired. Now, of course, since we're on a site and Sam and myself and the others were visitors, we had to be escorted by the safety folks. And so what do you think the safety person did? He starts running over there. He starts chomping at his, I got one. And Sam said, stop, hold on. Let me talk to him. And I got within earshot. And Sam came up to him and had a conversation. And he learned. The guy has a sick mom. He's calling in, checking on her over the course of the day. He forgot to turn off his machine and the like. But when Sam asked, hey, do you know where you can make these calls? And he goes, I have no idea. And there was no place in the facility, in the construction complex, where somebody could go and in a safe place, make a call to their family. Sam came up with a solution. Safety guy goes, okay, all right, we're not going to write him up. Still want to talk to him. We're not going to write him up. And Sam says, are you going to create some stations, some phone stations for him? Sounds like a good idea. So I knew I was following the right person. What am I doing here? I'm pushing, there we go. So we just witnessed a large toolbox talk with electrical contractors. They went out. So in a mine, you got the pit and you got the crusher, you got the mill. And so what mining construction companies do is they pretty much build the mill, right? The conveyor belts and the crushing machines and things like that, bunch of metal up in the sky that takes the ore, drops it, crushes it, drops into another thing, crushes it smaller all the way down into the cyanide pit where they extrude, say, the gold or whatever they're looking at. And then they went out and they started working. And Sam and I, got ourselves some breakfast and then went back out. And we came across a crew. We started talking to folks. We came across a crew. We started chatting with them. We came across this crew. This is a post picture. I wish I would have taken the picture before. But this crew had been on a conveyor, and they were bending conduit and strapping on with ties, so they could run wire in the future. So this conveyor started kind of at ground level and it worked its way up to about 4 stories up. They were at a turn in it where you're probably I'd say about 8 feet off the ground there. When we got there, these electricians were up on top of this conveyor. One was standing on top, trying to help get the conduit around. This conduit is hard to bend, and the other ones are in there pushing, and nobody had their fall protection on. And I had my spidey senses on, and I didn't know what I was looking at. So Sam just stood there, I'm looking at Sam. I'm like, he just stood there. And they saw him. And he had like the company logo on, right? So they're the general contractors, not their bosses, their boss's boss. He just stood there. And guess what they did? They got down. They started talking to each other. Now, Sam his heritage is Zulu. He told me what their heritage was, but he could speak their language. There's 11 different heritages, 11 different languages in South Africa. And of course, Sam is tri, quad, lingual. He can speak them all. I'm English, so. But he just stood there, and you could hear them talking. They got down, and they put on their PPE, they put on their harnesses, and then they got up, and they started clipping in here on the conduit, or not on where they were doing the conduit on the conveyor itself. And then it was I found it humorous because then the straps, the harnesses were in the way of where they're trying to do the conduits, and they kept talking to each other. And then Sam goes, hey, and asked them to come down, and then he circled them up. Called them into a huddle. And I pulled out my notepad. Let's listen to them. Now, Sam asked them, I have this dude from America, can I speak to you in English? And do you speak English? And all of them did except for a couple of them. And then he would repeat what he said in their native language. I think it was Zulu. And so this was their conversation. He goes, what task are you folks trying to do? What are you trying to do here? And they looked at each other and kind of a little surprised. They said, well, we're electricians. We got to put this conduit up, all the way from the beginning to the end, because the electric box is down there. We got to power, the conveyor. And as we do that, we're going to be able to put our wires in the conduit. Oh, that's interesting. I never even thought about having to have conduit all over our structure here. Then he said, well, what hazards can hurt you while you're doing this? And they started with their slip, trips, and falls, housekeeping. And he just kind of pressed, what really can happen? And he said, well, when we're doing that conduit, we can strain ourselves because we don't have a good place to stand, and we're straining. We could fall. We got sharp edges. We can cut ourselves. And Sam goes, oh, that's helpful. Thank you. I'll make sure we try to do something about these things. Then he asked, so what are you doing to stay safe? And they all did. This is when they got excited, right? They're saying, well, the PPE, that's the easiest thing, right? Whenever you ask, it's kind of like when you go to Sunday school and you ask a question, the answer is always like Jesus, right? So whenever you ask a work group, what are you doing to stay safe? PPE. And he pressed them, and they said, so we were talking to each other all the time. We got to communicate. We got to talk and make sure we know what each other's doing. And he goes, yeah. And, then they said, we wear our fall protection? And Sam said, yeah, I noticed. I noticed how you were helping each other figure out where to clip in. It's a hard thing to try to figure out where, these harnesses are like 4 feet high. They're only 8 feet off the ground. And it got in your way. And I noticed that you talked to each other to figure out the right place to do it. And then they started talking about whether it wasn't a good place and things like that. And then Sam said, can I tell you what concerned me? And they said, what? And he goes, well, when we were just watching you, some of you were kind of on top of the conveyor. And I understand why you did that, because it's hard to get the leverage you need without straining. But I'm concerned that you could fall. There's other people below you. You can fall on them, or hit the top of the conveyor and bruise yourself or hurt yourself or worse. And so he expressed his concern. And then he asked, what could we do differently? How could we solve this problem for you? And they came up with some ideas. We could use a ladder, right? He goes, where's your supervisor? Yeah, we could use our supervisor, to provide us ladders. He said, well, can I get you a ladder for the supervisor? And then the supervisor comes in with a ladder for this picture. And then he said, thanks. He gave him a thumbs up. That's a big deal, at least in South Africa. A thumbs up means a lot. And they gave him a thumbs up back. And I gave him a thumbs up. And, we were around all week. We weren't spying on them, but, in a construction site, you can look across the field and stuff like that. And this team PPE the whole way, fall protection the whole way, which is especially important as they work their way up to the 4 stories. You know, when we only tell people what's wrong, that kills the conversation. People don't want to have those conversations, and maybe they even react back in ways that make you not want to give them that feedback at all. But what if we talk about the safe actions that they're doing? Strengthens our conversation. And guess what? Most of what they're doing is safe. You got a lot to talk about. And what I learned from Ron at the grocery distribution warehouse is that talking to somebody about what they're doing safe is also pleasant for you, therefore reinforcing you so you'll do it more. Kind of like when John was walking this way all the time, because y'all were talking. So Sam and I, and a bunch of friends helping, designed a feedback process. We want to put workers at ease. Somebody comes up to tell you something about your work, what happens? You got Shabazz's pucker factor going on, right? You can quote me on that at the next safety summit for the Admiral. We want them to openly, honestly discuss their safety concerns and the risks that they may be taking on a calculated basis. We heard that from time and time again. We want to engage the worker to talk through the problem so there's a solution, like the task force and the campaign that the Navy's been doing since 2020. It's not enough just to list what's there. We got to come up with solutions. Maybe you can have a chance to do a hazard identification practice, a moment to kind of look around and see what the hazards are. If you're a manager, you may not have been aware of those hazards, and that helps you create a safer environment. But we still want to deliver corrective feedback in a way that's accepted. And the way you do that is by being human with them, not by pulling out the rule book and saying that you violated Section 5, page 17, Chapter 3, Paragraph 2 of the risk assessment. No. I care about you, you know? I may have seen a bad accident while I was here. I don't want it on my watch. I've seen other people do it. Don't want you hurt. Don't want to see it happen. You have a family. And of course, we want to reinforce workers for the safe behavior, but not only for the safe behavior, but also for those solutions they come up with. Yeah, it's a great idea to get a ladder. Bam, we threw some rebar in there. What's going to happen next time? They're going to get themselves a ladder for their solution. Make it quick, create a learning moment, 5 minutes. So Sam and I ask you, in our conversations that we've heard this whole time, what do we need to talk about? One last time. People get hurt doing tasks. Not general statements like mind on task or complacency. You get hurt doing a task. You got to talk about the task. The reason you get hurt doing a task is you come in contact with the hazards on that task, the energy, the sharp edges, the heights, the explosive material, the helicopter wing. I'm out of my zone here. And what do we got to talk about when we talk about the hazards? Well, what are you doing to protect yourself around these hazards? What actions are you doing to be safe? But we got to talk about the actions that concern me that put you at risk. But we're not done with the conversation, as Shabazz told us, until we come up with a solution. Because the reason we're doing the behavior is both safe and at risk is because of the situation we've been put in. The equipment, the facilities, the process, the management systems, all the lists that we heard from everybody else. We got to talk about real things in the real moment with the real work that's being done, and the real hazards that are going to hurt you, and the real behaviors that make a difference in that moment. So Sam and I give you the thanks conversation. Start out by asking your worker, what task are you doing? Now, I just got done with my diatribe about the task is where you get hurt and all that stuff. But, you know, I imagine that professional that's been trained, that's been on the job for years, should be afforded the respect to talk about their job a little bit. And most likely, if you're a manager, you could probably learn from what they're doing. Giving them the respect they deserve to start with. Does that pucker up anybody? Does that make them nervous? No. It probably makes them more likely to be open to the conversation you're about to have. Then you ask them about the hazards that are in the task. This isn't about them yet either, right? It's not about you or them. It's about the actual hazards, and you get to learn something there as well. Then you ask them about the actions. A, this is an acronym, my only one. You ask them about the actions that they're doing to stay safe. Now, why do that? Because most of what they're doing is being safe. Let them brag on themselves. They'll start listing what they're doing. You may learn some of their behavior hacks, their B hacks, the specific creative things that they've just started doing as a professional to keep themselves safe that maybe other people should learn about. First three items: ask, ask, ask. Who's doing the talking? You? I'm sorry, that's a tough question. Let me ask it a different way. Who's doing the talking? You? They are. It's called a conversation, right? If you're doing more than 50% of the talking, you need to recalibrate. You need to practice this. They're doing the talking because you're asking about things that are real to them, showing them respect, allowing them to discuss the safe behaviors that you may not know about. And then we get to N. You say, yeah, I noticed. You don't have to have a cookie party. You don't have to be giving away a raffle so they can get a truck. Reinforcement doesn't have to be tangible. In fact, showing that little bit of respect and actually just the term, yes, I noticed, is all you need. But can I tell you what else I noticed that concerned me? Yeah, I know that concern starts with a C, but I have a doctorate. I'm allowed to do it. And you'll remember it better. Yeah, can I tell you what concerned me? What else I noticed that concerned me? And so now we're talking about at-risk behavior, human to human, in a way that allows us to have a good conversation that arrives at a solution. Now, every time I've seen this practiced, and those of you who practice it out there, typically when you ask about what actions are you doing to be safe, they start saying, oh yeah, my fall protection. And you go, yeah, I noticed, it concerned me. You're not done with the conversation until you get to the solution. The S. What can we do? Right now in our environment, can I get the ladder for you? Can I get some other people to help you? Don't allow them to say, I'll try harder. That's not a solution. Because you're not trying to solve the problem for that person. Or I should probably say, in addition to trying to solve the problem for that person, you're trying to solve it for anybody doing that task. And as they come up with these solutions, thank you. Yes, that's great. And of course, you'll want to try to do them. So it's a thanks conversation. So, we're at the end of the conference here. You're not allowed to leave until you can tell me what it is. Yeah. Elevate, what's T? Go. No, you're not elevate. Stop it. It's my chief over here. They're trying to do everything. In fact, they do everything. They're just used to it. Elevate, T. Task. Good job. Yeah. All right. MDI, A, H. Ask about the hazards. Okay, now we're going to up the ante. Chatham, A. That they're doing safely. All right, now we're getting at it. Marathon, N. Yeah, I noticed. I bet you guys, when you do observations and you go through the safe behaviors and you say, I noticed this, it's appreciated, especially peer-to-peer. It's appreciated when your peer says, hey, I noticed this. But even as a manager, and the lowly manager, saying they noticed something that you did extra be safe, mindfully safe? Absolutely. All right, where are we at? Let's see. Conoego. K. Is that spelled correctly? But you'll remember it. And let's see. U.S. Naval Aviation. Solve the problem. I can't go oorah. Oh, we do the pucker. Shabazz is going to Singapore next year. No big deal. So go out. That's your homework. You can't come back next year unless you do it. Well, you can, but we'll ask. You have to talk to Denise. It's not hard to do the thanks conversation, but it is. You got to inhibit your instincts to just jump in and solve the problem. You want them to arrive at the solution. You want to inhibit your bias to tell them what they're doing is wrong. Include them in the conversation. Respect their perspective. Exhibit concern as humans. And the magic of this is you yourself will find it reinforcing. See you, Conowago. Enjoy the private jet home. Yeah. Conowago's been coming many years, and I appreciate them and all of you. You'll enjoy the conversation, so will your people, and you'll see results in behavior. And it ain't going to cost you a thing. It's free. That's your homework between now and next year's safety conference. This one, I hope, is part of your yearly diet of behavioral science. Appreciate our friends of the U.S. Navy coming. Appreciate the return of Elevate and your many years of supporting. Appreciate Chatham, bringing your leader, letting them cry on stage. Marathon, you know I love you as you go through your world. Merck, welcome. Lutron, welcome. Gildan, thanks for your first year of sponsoring us. I'm going to miss somebody. Eastman, we were worried about you. 7 of you coming from utilities. Yeah.
Georgia Port Authority.
Georgia Port Authority. Who else? Who else?
Bryant. Where's?
You're pointing at something I can't see, Sean. I'm 9 years old. MDI.
He said MDI.
They know it. I'm going to go see them next week. We're fine. Yeah. Thank you, Denise, for stepping in as our MC this year. How'd you do?
Oh, happy to do it.
Thank you to my dear friends and speakers coming from all over the world and the United States. Thank you, everybody, for the extra step it takes to keep your folks safe. It's a noble enterprise, and you should be honored for it. Take us home.
All right. You did it. You did it. You did 2 days. Are your brains numb? Bob, what are they going to do with their knowledge? Please, they're not going to what? They're not going to what? Thank you, Bob. Listen, it has been a pleasure getting to know you. If I didn't get to chat with you, thank you for being here. I hope you go back and apply it. Start on the way out of the building. And then come back and see us next year, right? Appreciate all you do. It matters. Thank you, guys.
You say but pray night and day, or you'll sink in the deep. Fathers and mothers are crying so loud, saying, Lord, won't you take us in the lifeboat? Take me in the lifeboat, take me in the lifeboat. It was then the raging storm. Take me in the lifeboat, take me in the lifeboat. It will bear my spirits home. The clouds are so heavy, the wind is so loud, the thunder is rolling, bursting in the clouds. They prayed for their shipmates for what they had done. They took the dying sailors in the light.